Hi, and welcome back to Let's Learn to Sew. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use the gathering foot to gather fabric on your sewing machine. Now, the gathering foot works in two ways. You can gather a single piece of fabric or trim, or you can take your main fabric and the fabric you want gathered, and it will gather the piece that you place underneath to the piece that is on top. I've got two different gathering feet here. This one here snaps on, and on the other underside you can see this back section does not actually touch the throat plate of the machine, just the front section does. Now, for this particular gathering foot, you can only gather a single piece of fabric. This gathering foot is the gathering foot you'll typically see. And again, the back section does not touch the bottom, the throat plate of your machine. The front section does. But in here, there's a slot, there's a little opening. So the piece that's going to be ruffled travels down along the throat plate on the underside. The piece that is going to remain flat and be attached to the ruffle slides in this section right here. You have one piece underneath. You would sandwich this piece in between, get it in there, and start sewing. I have a low shank machine. Either of these feet will work with my machine. I'm going to show you using this one. That way I can show you just gathering a single piece of fabric, and then I can also show you using this lip here, this little slot, how you would gather one piece and attach it to a flat section. I'm going to go ahead and get my machine set up. Sewing machine, I have it threaded up. I've got the gathering foot on my machine, and I'm using the one that has the slot so that you can gather either a single piece of fabric or you can gather your two pieces of fabric together. For my sewing machine setup, I've got my machine set to a straight stitch, and I've increased my stitch length to as long as it will go. I'm going to begin with a single piece of fabric. I'm going to place it under the presser foot, not placing it in the slot, and I'm going to begin stitching. And you can see it's gathering up. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and stitch down this entire section of fabric. Okay. I'm going to raise the presser foot and trim my threads. So there I've got my single piece of fabric gathered using the gathering foot. Now I'm going to place a piece of fabric underneath the presser foot. I'm just going to use my needle to hold it in place while I get the other piece of fabric. Other piece of fabric, place it in the slot. And there is a lip here that's going to prevent it from going in too much further. So what you can do is you can adjust your stitch width. That's going to move the needle over if you need to get this placed correctly. You're just going to start stitching. That bottom piece is going to gather and the top piece is going to stay flat. So now I've got you guys on the other side of the machine, so you can hopefully you can see better. This is the section that's being gathered. This top section is the flat piece. It's in that slot and it's going to stay flat. This is definitely easier to do and maneuver when you're not trying to record. You don't need to push or pull on the fabric. I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way to the end, and then I'll show you what the two pieces look like gathered together. So you can see we've got our single piece of fabric that we gathered. You're going to want to play with your stitch length to get the gathers at the distance that you want them. And then you'll play with your stitch width, that's your needle position, to get the edge or your stitch line where you want it. Okay, and this is the other piece that I showed you guys. This is the bottom section, this is the top, so the bottom ruffled and stitched to the piece on top that remained flat. So this was the piece that was in the slot. And again, just like with the other one, you'll have to play around with your stitch length and stitch width to get this exactly where you want it. If you have any questions about how to use the gathering foot, let me know down in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer them. And as always, be sure to visit letslearntosew.com, your sewing and pattern making headquarters.